Welcome, everyone. If you could put your speakers on mute. My name is Pete Corrigan, and I'm the Associate Director of Employer and Alumni Connections at the University of Arizona. And we are honored to have a great team from GCU here today. And I'm going to introduce Merritt Hahn. Merritt is the Director of Academic and Career Excellence at GCU. And her presentation is From Student Worker to Working from Home. Thank you, Merritt, so much for being here.
Awesome. Thank you, Pete. I appreciate it. And thank you for being our Zoom host. Greatly appreciate that support. But yes, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. As Pete mentioned, my name is Merritt. I've been at GCU for going on about 7.5 years now. And we are here today to share with you a little bit about how we were able to pivot pretty quickly in response to COVID-19 in terms of not only transitioning our full-time staff to working from home, but also our student workers to working from home. And so we're really excited about what we're able to do, and we're hoping this might be able to help spark some ideas for some of you who may be planning for fall in terms of utilizing whatever student workers you might have, or exploring offering new student worker opportunities, especially now with this flexibility and option of offering kind of these remote options. So today we'll be going through basically our normal state of student workers, so what it looked like before COVID-19 hit, and then our process of transition to getting our student workers to work from home. We'll be talking about our current status, so what's going on now. And then we'll talk about some of the interpersonal support and resilience building that we're trying to provide for our student workers. And then we are lucky enough to have a good number of our current student workers who are working from home here for a panel. So thank you to all of you who are here. They're going to talk a little bit about what it's been like to transition to working from home and what it's like working from home as a student worker. And then we have some next steps for all of you to consider should this be something you want to explore for fall. So just want to highlight what it looked like before. So within our division of student success, we have 4 main areas. One is an area that supports our K-12 Learning Lounge. So we do offer free academic tutoring for a number of K-12 students in our area. And the K-12 team employs about 30 student workers on average. I'm from the Academic and Career Excellence Department, and we typically have around 60 or so student workers, so we're very student worker reliant. So we provide both academic and career support to all of our ground traditional students. And so they fall into a few different buckets. We've got our academic leads, we call them learning advocates. We've got career leads. We have FYE or first year experience leads, and then we have some front desk leads who help us navigate all the traffic coming into our centers. We have 6 of them across campus. And then we have our strategic employer initiatives and internships team. So they are focused on the employer engagement, employer relationships, and employer events, so career events and information sessions. And so they usually employ about 14 or so student workers. And then we have our non-trad academic support and scholarships team. They typically have about, actually I think it's more about 30, between 25 and 30 student workers. I believe they have maybe 10 right now. And responsibilities of all these student workers include academic support. It's basically tutoring, although we don't like to call it that. It's that face-to-face kind of coaching, helping that student learn how to not only master the content, but also how might they be able to improve their studying habits or their learning style, or engaging with their faculty, all those different pieces. Then we have career support. I'm sure this is familiar with a lot of you. It's that peer-to-peer support for basic career skills, so resume writing, interviewing, using our system. So we use Simplicity. We call it Career Connections on our campus, but Simplicity is the provider of that, so making sure students know how to use that system. And then on the employer engagement side, our student workers help provide that support, the event planning and execution. We have a lot of events going on every year, every semester, every month, every week, honestly. So we actually recently transitioned from kind of a one big event a year type model to a multiple event per week type model. So there's a lot more legwork that goes into that. And so our employer engagement support student workers really help a lot with that as well. So from here, I'm actually going to hand it over to Lionel Williams, who's that director of the non-trad academic support and the scholarships area, and he was really instrumental in helping us pivot quickly and make that transition to make sure our student workers could basically take equipment and start working from home. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to you, Lionel.
Thanks, Merritt. Good morning, everyone. As Merritt just described, I work with the non-trad. I work with the non-trad students in terms of providing academic support. Just so you all are all on the same page, I believe you're aware of the non-trad, trad, and just hopefully that's just not an internal term that we use, but just in case if it is, the non-trad refers to our online population, not our ground. So we provide support, academic support for our online population, as well as our ground through the ACE program. So right around the time, and I'm going to be sprinkling in a little bit of anecdotal story or experience, just so you guys can follow along and see what we've done to mobilize getting technology out to our students and getting them able to work remotely. So right around the time of COVID-19 being declared national emergency, we started getting daily internal updates, as probably you all are familiar with the same experience of getting internal updates on the pandemic's development, as well as reiteration of us abiding by CDC guidelines. And my department, again, being responsible for supporting online students, I had a call center where we had all of my student workers would go to this call center where they would conduct the academic support for online students. So as soon as we learned about the potential decision of our students being converted to the online learning modality for the remainder of the semester, we as a team, and Merritt can remember this, we were sitting together in a conference room, realizing that the show must go on for our round student population, even though they're being moved to online. How can we make sure that they have access to academic support? So almost immediately, I mean, within that same day, reached out to IT management to see what could be done. And thankfully, without reservation, the IT department realized the urgency of the situation and were very accommodating, trying to meet our need. So the next thing that we did was we need to identify student workers that were interested in working remotely. So we collected that information via survey. And also we took an inventory of the technology that we already had on hand. And so in our call center, we had so many workstations. You know, workstations would consist of a computer and the telephone for making those outbound calls and so forth. And so we tallied all of this, and as a slide, we took count of the CPUs. IT even had some laptops that they were able to share with us, so we kind of took account of that. Soft phones and the program for that, the headsets, VPN access was added to all of these computers as needed, so we can FERPA verify the students that we're working with as we do in normal situations. And then special projects folks. So we do some student workers who just maybe assist with some outreach to the students to make sure that they were reverting to the online modality okay without any issues. And they didn't necessarily need full kit, if you will, of the computer's workstation. So we kind of took count of all of those things. And so then we began work with IT to get the additional computer stations that we need. And actually they assisted us with shipping them out. And of course, worked out an agreement where we would pay for this, but they would take care of the ship. They know how to pack it. Very experienced in getting back out to even some of our full-time employees that work in other states. And so they were very instrumental with that. The next thing that we engaged in is the checkout process. And this is where cloud-based productivity applications really became our best friend. So what I mean by that, Microsoft Forms, Google Forms, Docs, Google Sheets, you know, this was really instrumental in allowing all of us to collaborate remotely together on the same document and be able to develop some information or tools that where we can use to train one another on the process. For example, Google Docs was used when we developed a checkout procedure. We had to develop a very quick procedure, and it needed to be quickly accessible to anyone who was facilitating the process. So that being accessible by URL link, that helped us, you know, to post this in a place where anyone who was going to be helping out with checking out of computers, they'd be able to access the information and do the task. And then also use Google Sheets for various tracking information, tracking purposes. So what I did is I utilized two forms of tracking. So we used Google Sheets for the actual checkout, the in-person face-to-face checkout of the computer technology, but also use Microsoft Forms as a tracking tool as well. And that, in Microsoft Forms, I maintained more detailed information on the student workers that were receiving technology. So on the Google Sheet checkout, face-to-face checkout, I would track down student worker name, of course, the serial number or the serial numbers for each of the technology. And so just very basic information, including maybe student ID. And then with the Microsoft Forms, I got more detail. And this was probably one of the best decisions that was made for that. But I captured student worker name, student ID, preferred contact number, academic year. And this was really important for capturing, because we had seniors who were working remotely for the remainder of the year who would need to return their technology at graduation or at the end of their college career. So I needed to be able to identify who these students were really quickly, so we knew how to track that. Also, we tracked student worker sub-department. As you saw in the broken down structure, we had different sub-departments. So we were able to easily identify what departments they were part of for contact purposes, address of where each tech will be utilized. I think that was probably the most important thing, because a lot of our students who were moving back home weren't necessarily where they were going to be working at the time. So it was really important to capture, you know, where will they be utilizing this technology? There's different shipping costs in relation to the states and so forth. So that was really important to capture. And then the exact tech items that they checked out, I had a checkbox for each of those. And then finally, I had 3 disclaimer statements that the student workers had to check in this form, and that we were able to keep a record of. And so they needed to check that they understood and would adhere to the proper usage of the borrowed technology. So really reiterated that, keep in mind, this is property of the university, and you're required to take care of this. The next thing was expectations for working remotely, because now they're not in direct supervision. So we needed to be able to at least get their awareness, understanding, and acknowledgement that this is what we're expecting you to, how to perform remotely. And then finally, adherence to FERPA guidelines while working remotely. They needed to check that as well. So again, all that was captured. I have a huge spreadsheet. Those of you who have used Google Forms, you know how that works. And we can filter accordingly, and we're able to get some really good information quickly on the students that have technology on hand. So moving on, we quickly developed a transition training for our ground academic support workers and ACE so that they could begin supporting the ground students with online modalities. So being that we've already been working with online students, we had a system in place. So basically, we just flipped the switch and they moved into what we do. And so the students were able to immediately schedule the sessions, and it was pretty seamless. And so we restructured responsibilities, and then and one thing that we did is we kind of tore down the silo mentality, and that was really important for student success because we shifted our student workers to where the greatest need was. And we trained or cross-trained accordingly. And so we are able to pivot our efforts and kind of rally around the greatest need, which was to make sure that our ground students were adequately supported so that they could finish the semester strong. And if you have any questions, feel free to kind of share some questions. I don't know if Merritt, you wanted to do that at the end, but you just let me know, but I'm available for questions.
Awesome. Thank you, Lionel. So I can't see the chat box, otherwise it starts to block the screen for everyone, but Bianca is manning that. So Bianca, if you see any questions, please feel free to shoot them out there.
Tucker, hey.
All right. So thank you, Lionel. I appreciate all of that and all of your work in helping us transition our students to working from home. So our current status after all of those efforts is that we have a number of students working from home. Some of them are still on campus, some of them are home here in the Valley, and then a few of them are in different states across the country as well. So on the academic side, we're utilizing a system called TutorTrack for our scheduling for appointments. So students can use TutorTrack to schedule an appointment with one of our academic leads. We're also using Career Connections or Simplicity, which is our system similar to Handshake for documenting some of these interactions. We're heavily reliant on Zoom, but I know we have a few other options as well if needed, but we're using Zoom to share screens and be able to help students with the content they might be struggling with. We have those soft phones, which I don't know how many of you are familiar with those, but it's very similar to the phone that sits on your desk. It's just a software version on your laptop that utilizes the internet. It's a great feature. I had it in a few previous roles. It works really well. And so it's allowed our students to be able to make outbound phone calls and to take these appointments without using their own personal phones. And then of course, having that VPN access in order to access our internal systems for FERPA verification and other needs. On the career side, our career leads, which are those peer-to-peer support student workers, they are able to do resume reviews and mock interviews pretty easily virtually through basic systems and then of course Zoom. And so they're making a lot of outbound calls for us right now to help promote the upcoming virtual career fairs that our SEI team has done such a great job in putting together throughout the summer here, and the information sessions and other events. And then also reaching out to our students who just graduated who indicated that they didn't have any plans for after graduation. On the SEI side here, I'll turn it over to Bianca to describe a little bit of what her side is looking like in terms of student workers.
Thanks, Merritt. So on our side, the student workers are primarily focused on employer engagement and making sure that our students have the opportunity to engage with employers. So some of the things they do, they're really heavy in our career connection system. They help with the virtual career fair in an info session builds. They post announcements to help promote these events so students will come out, and they send out reminder notifications all the time. They are asked to be familiar with what's new in the system, so they have ongoing system trainings all the time. They are responsible for managing our virtual events and helping us to plan them. They also assist us in our marketing communications. We do have some students on our team that are very creative, and they help create these beautiful flyers, which we can post in our announcements and share on our social media. We are really heavy on customer service. Like Merritt said, they do a lot of phone calls. So, we try to make sure they know, students come first, and they're very pleasant. They love to serve people. So customer service is really huge for us as well as ACE. And then they do a lot of employer engagement outreach. meaning we want to establish new partnerships, bring new companies to our campus. So they do a lot of reaching out, to see if we can get more companies engaged. As far as delivery of office supports, I think that's on both of our sides. We do rely on them because they are boots on the ground, so that oftentimes they know a little bit more about what's going on than we do. So they help us a lot in establishing our internal processes and what makes sense, what works the best, what needs to be, tweaked a little bit, and what's working really well. Another thing they do, again, referencing back to those phone calls, they do those early alert calls. And, these calls are super important. Students who may be struggling or they're forgetful, they get these alerts, which tells us, hey, check on this student. So they do a lot of those phone calls, just sharing our resources to the students, letting them know, we're here for you, whatever's going on, you have this support system. They also do it for our summer courses too. So any students struggling in those areas, they're there for them as well. Thanks, Mary.
Awesome. Thank you, Bianca.
Yeah.
All right, so something else we've been focusing on is how do we make sure we're staying connected with these student workers and making sure that they're doing okay during these difficult times as well. So we've had a big focus on our managers who oversee the student workers are making sure they're staying connected in a variety of different ways. It's kind of dependent upon the manager, but they're at least doing weekly one-on-ones or check-ins. They're doing individual team check-ins, so the A side, the SEI side, even the career side and the academic side, talking about what challenges they might be facing, what's going well working from home, these different areas to make sure that our student workers still feel supported. We're also trying to have some fun with them. So actually last Friday, on one of their clocked hours, we did a fun Zoom Kahoot. So if anybody hasn't used Kahoot, it's kind of a fun way to engage in trivia. So everybody can go to a certain Kahoot link with a code to join that particular session. And then somebody had built some questions in there, and we just had fun being able to answer the questions, and you could have a leaderboard and that kind of thing. So we had fun in terms of just random knowledge trivia, and then also some GCU or team trivia. So we had a lot of fun just catching up with them, and each of them shared a little bit about what they've been doing since they've been home. So that was another really fun way to stay connected with them and make sure that we're keeping a kind of a pulse on how they're doing and making sure that we're maintaining that connection with them. We're also providing resources and helping them learn, hey, there's all different kinds of ways you might be able to work. If anything, this pandemic has taught us that there's a lot of flexibility in the potential of working from home. You might work from home all the time or part-time and going in sometimes. And so really trying to use this as an educational opportunity to make sure these student workers understand, hey, when you go out into the real world, this is actually something you might face. And how can we help you use this experience even moving forward then into skills you can start to speak to when you're in interviews, talking to employers, being able to utilize all these different technologies. You can definitely bring those skills into a future internship or job opportunity. So we are focusing, we haven't done it yet. We've been really focused on making sure they transitioned into this situation well first, but then moving forward throughout the rest of the summer, we'll be working with them on, okay, how can we work on updating your resume now? How can we work on how you might answer some of these questions or how you might speak to some of these things in your future interview? So that's something we have plans to do here throughout the rest of the summer.
Awesome. Mary, we have a couple of questions.
Yeah, thank you.
Looks like Lionel answered Nick's first question, which was, which software products do you use for soft phones? And the answer was Cisco Jabber software. The second question was, do your students delivering career support do any different appointments than professional staff?
Yes, so our career leads primarily do resume reviews, and they might do some basic mock interviews, whereas our full-time staff are doing both of those, and then they're also doing some mock interviews, some career coaching, so those lovely conversations where students come to you and say they don't know what they want to do with their lives, those kinds of conversations. We also have a pre-health, we have a number of biology pre-health programs. So we have a pre-health advisor who is having some more of those conversations around how do you prepare for graduate school applications and that kind of things. And so those are typically more on the professional staff member side.
Awesome. One more question from Heather. Could you give a little bit more detail on the Kahoot trivia session?
Yes, so I did not build it, I'll be entirely honest, but it was really easy to use in terms of a user experience. And so we've actually had a number of our academic leads, so our students who help provide that peer-to-peer academic support, they'll do big Kahoot sessions when they have big exams coming up, primarily in biology. And so essentially what happens is, I imagine you can create some kind of manager account at Kahoot. It's Kahoot with an exclamation mark. And so you can go in and create, basically preload some questions and then multiple choice answers for each of those questions. And then you get a code for that particular trivia session. And so whenever you're ready to run that session, anybody who wants to join it can either join via the Kahoot app or going to cahoot.it. There's no exclamation mark in that one. So Kahoot.it, and enter the code, so whatever that numeric code is. And then basically once everybody's in, you can run the session. So the manager can push through each of the questions. And so you can push through the question, it displays the answers. Everybody can basically use the app or the website on their phone to submit their answer. It's usually 4 answers. And then it will automatically show up on the screen in terms of a leaderboard. And I do believe you get more points the quicker you answer the questions as well, so that's kind of fun too. And then I think we had 25 questions in our little fun trivia session we did with our leads, but I know when they're preparing for some of those larger biology exams, they have more questions than that as well. So it was really fun. That was the first time I participated in it, but it was a lot of fun, and I know a lot of our faculty use it as well. Awesome. Okay, well, I would say we should move into our student worker panel, since I know we only have maybe 7 minutes or so before we have to turn it over for questions at the end and the discussion time at the end. So Bianca has graciously agreed to basically run a little student worker panel. We have 6 of our student workers, 3 on the ACE side and 3 on the SEI side, who have so graciously given some of their time to share a little bit about what their experience has been like.
Awesome. Thank you, Merritt. And I'll move quickly through this. I'll just have you all introduce yourselves. We can start with Bella and work our way down, Melissa, and then after Merpan, Promise, and so on and so forth. Very quickly, just share, please introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Bella. I'm about to be a senior, and I help out with specifically writing when it comes to like the academic side.
Hi, I'm Melissa. I'm technically a junior, though this is my sophomore year. I work on the career side, and I help specifically with the pre-med and pre-health division.
Hi, my name is Marpan. I'm a senior this semester, and I most likely work with students who are in the technology field as well.
Hi, I'm Promise. I'm gonna be a sophomore this year, and I work with students and getting them to attend events.
Teslam? Okay, Zoe, you're up. We'll come back to Teslam. I think you may be muted. No. Looks like we're having some technical difficulties. That's okay, Zoe. Can we hear you?
Perfect. Sorry.
There you are.
Okay, can you hear me now? Perfect. Okay, sorry. I'm Zoe. I am a junior here studying finance and economics, and within the SCI department, I work more employer facing.
Thank you. All right, so Zoe, when you heard that GCU was transitioning to an online learning modality due to COVID, what immediate thoughts did you have related to your student worker job?
Yeah, for sure. That's a great question. So my immediate thoughts were, there was a lot going on. There's a lot of, things in the air. My first, things popped in my head was, is this something we're able to do from home? Is there something, that I can do to help benefit? Is this something that our department can really get on the ball with and help? And it's been amazing. But yeah, that was my first thoughts as a student worker.
Thank you. What about you, Bella?
For me, right away, I just thought it was like a huge blessing just because I know that a lot of other places were like closing down and they didn't really have the option of allowing all of their employees to work online or from home. So just the fact that like our department and our whole like program was able to figure that out, I just thought it was a huge blessing. And I was like actually really excited to try and like do like tutoring sessions online.
Melissa, what has it meant to you to be able to work from home as a student worker during this pandemic?
Yeah, so a little bit about my situation right now. When COVID happened, I actually ended up in a spot where I didn't know where I would be living. So for me, being able to still work from home meant that I still had like a secure job. I knew that I'd still be making a paycheck. Like I wasn't quite sure where I was going to go yet, but I at least knew that that would be constant. And the support from our management and even our management's management has been great. So for me, it's meant that like I know that there's something that I can lean back on. They've cared for me not just as a student worker, but like as like in my own personal life.
Thank you, Melissa. How about you, Promise? What has it meant to you to be able to work from home?
I would agree that it's just been a blessing, like just having income and being able to still rely on a GCU to provide that. Yeah, it's just been a blessing.
Great. Teslam, are you there? Do you want to introduce yourself quickly? We have sound issues with Teslam as well. I think you may be muted. No?
Now,
Yes, yes. Hi.
there we go. Microphone settings were a bit off. I'm Teslim, and I'm an MBA major, and generally right now I'm helping to clean up career connections, which is something we've never had time for. So we finally have time for it, and we're finally getting through that. Do you have a question?
Great. Yes, I do. What is your favorite and least favorite part about being able to work from home?
My favorite part is being able to just skip the commute to work. I used to take the bus, and that was hell. So that's my favorite part. My least favorite part is not getting to see everyone. You know, that was my top part of working at SEI, was meeting everybody, working with everybody, because we've got such a great collection of people, and it's just difficult without that, you know.
Thank you. Mirpan, how could we as full-time staff better support you and other student workers working from home?
That's a great question. I think the best thing, which most of the managers have been doing, is like constantly communicating with the students, constantly checking up on how they're doing, how they could better support them, and as well as you know, checking up on us like emotionally and not just physically as well. So constant communication has really done the job.
Thank you. And then quickly, Bella, what advice would you give to a manager overseeing student workers who are working from home?
I would say it's okay not to know things, just because obviously like when everything broke out, you know, it was kind of impossible to have all the answers right away. But also like I'm sure that there was kind of like a pressure because all the students wanted to know what's going on, or like the student workers. So I would say that it's definitely okay like not to know things right away, and to just take some time like figuring that out. Because I mean, I understand obviously not like they're managers and they're supposed to provide all the answers for us, but again, like when things are so uncertain and things are out of their control, like there's nothing that they can do about it. So again, just like as a reminder, like it's okay not to know, but then I definitely would like encourage them also to like communicate the fact that they don't know, and that's like totally fine.
Awesome. You guys are so amazing. We really appreciate all the information you all shared. Thank you very much.
Yes, agreed. Thank you all so much. We appreciate you and everything you're doing, everything you always do, and then especially being so resilient and working from home. We couldn't do it without you. So thank you. All right, just really quick thanks. I know we are running out of time. When we had our proposal accepted, we were asked to provide some thoughts around possible next steps that other universities and institutions might be able to take away. So we'd highly recommend everything Lionel was talking about in terms of identifying what technology is really going to be needed in order for your student workers to be successful in fulfilling their responsibilities from home. This might look different depending on what the roles might be, or depending on the different types of technologies they might need to use, whether that's university issued technology, CPUs, laptops, Chromebooks, whatever it might be. Exploring those soft phones. So as Bianca and Lionel mentioned, that we use the Cisco Jabber phone. Some kind of VPN, so a way to access whatever drives or systems or internal websites they might need to access. Clocking in and tracking work. I know for some of our student workers, that's been a little bit easier. Having that VPN access, they've been able to clock in using the system they normally use, but if they're working on special projects and they don't have all that technology, we've had to come up with workarounds for that. And then utilizing Zoom or other form of virtual meeting platform if they'll be providing any kind of appointment or discussion type interaction with students. And then of course, getting that technology to them. For our students who are still around, they were able to pick it up via physical distancing pickup. But for some students who had already left or were on their way out and didn't have time to come in or didn't feel safe coming in, we did organize, as Lionel described, a way to ship that equipment to them. In addition, making sure you have training set up. I know that was really a big piece of the pivot, and I'm not necessarily saying we perfected it, but we were able to come up with some training fairly last minute in order to make sure our students felt comfortable using the systems, using the phones, using Zoom when they hadn't necessarily done that before. So we really had to rely on the student workers who had used those systems and those processes before to train our other student workers. So trying to pivot that really quickly and making sure our students felt comfortable once they did get all that technology at home. And then of course, a scheduling system. So you heard us talk about Tutor Track. We're using that on the academic side. On the career side, we use Career Connections. So our Simplicity system does have a scheduling system in it. We're actually looking at using that system for both academics and career in the fall. And then coming up with hybrid work schedules. We don't necessarily know what fall will look like just yet, but could our student workers potentially work some at home or from their dorm, or coming into the office sometimes, or all from one or the other. So being flexible and offering what those work schedules might look like. And then really setting expectations for those student workers when they return to the office in terms of what will that environment look like? What will they be expected to do and uphold in terms of social distancing, wearing face masks, whatever cleaning protocols, hand sanitizer, handshakes, on the career side, whether or not you are going to be allowed to do a handshake when conducting a mock interview, those kinds of things as well. So those were just some of the initial ideas we came up with in terms of next steps for how you might be able to implement an opportunity for student workers to work remotely. We do have a quick survey if you wouldn't mind filling it out. It's just 5 questions. You can use that QR code. We're just really curious about what other institutions are doing for their student workers during this pandemic and looking into fall in order to try and provide opportunities for them. So we would greatly appreciate that. You can just pull it up quickly on your phone. It's 5 questions on SurveyMonkey. But other than that, Bianca, do we have any more questions?
We do. It looks like Nick, he wants to know, what does your virtual training onboarding process look like if you've hired anyone new since going remote or are planning to for the fall?
Good question. So we have not hired anyone new as of yet. We actually have a couple on our first year experience team who are on their way in. They're being onboarded right now, at least on the A side. I don't know, on the SEI side, Bianca, if you hired anybody new?
No, not student workers yet.
Okay. So Nick, to be honest, that's something we're still working on. We're still trying to figure out what our fall is going to look like, if we're going to allow for any kind of face-to-face interactions with students or if we'll be all virtual. But either way, we want our student workers to be trained in both. We really believe that this is a great skill and opportunity for them to develop knowledge and proficiency in utilizing these systems and technologies. And so we'd like to train them on both opportunities. So that is something they can take into their future. We've done a lot of kind of shadowing type training. So It's really great in the fact that you can share screens on Zoom and have a few different people on the appointment. So for example, if a lead is conducting an academic appointment with a student, if another lead is in training, they'll join that Zoom session and just watch. And they'll do that maybe a couple of times, depending on when they feel comfortable, to a point where they might run the meeting and still have the more senior lead on that call with them in case they get stuck, and then fully getting to a point where they feel comfortable taking that session over. So I know that's been part of it. But in terms of how we're going to deliver that training for fall, that's something that we're still working on.
Thank you, Mary. Nick had a question for me. Can you speak a bit about some challenges or benefits about having the SEI student ambassadors in charge of marketing and promotion for career events and fairs? Because currently he doesn't have students doing that work, just professional staff. Some of the benefits and challenges for that, the challenge is their schedules, you know, they're not here the 40 hours. So we really try to work around their schedule. So when they're here, you know, they're instrumental, but it's just those times when they're not here that we kind of have to pivot or work on our scheduling a little bit. The benefit is they speak the language of the students, so they understand what students want to see, what they want to hear. You know, they have really cool ideas about, you know, little gimmicks that we can do, giveaways, whatever it is, you know, they know better than us. So it's been really exciting to see students respond to that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everybody. And to everybody on our side who is presenting, thank you. We appreciate you as well, and hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.